So, welcome to Mindset, Motivation, and Mastery. Again, I am so excited about today's conversation. I get to talk to the one and only Kathleen Black of Kathleen Black Coaching and Consulting. She is one of North America's top coaches and coaches some of our top teams, not only here in Canada, but all across North America. Kathleen, do you coach anyone outside of North America?
No, we've started to do some training and talks in Europe and expanding, but we're not actively like one-on-one coaching.
Very good.
Yet. Soon.
Very good. Yeah, soon. Good. Well, I know I've heard so many amazing things about you and your team there at Kathleen Black Coaching. Now, tell me a little bit about you. Like, you were a Remax agent, and again, you were in the top 1%. You started your company in 2015. Tell me a little bit about that transition into your company.
Yeah, well, I used to run the first team-specific coaching company in Canada. So I used to run Dan Plattman Team Systems before this company. So this company went live 2015, and originally I was selling. So definitely, when anything, I personally don't think you have to be selling to be a great coach or trainer, but anything I do coach and train when it comes to sales systems, I personally used it. Yeah. So the transition just came from, I think, wanting to help other people be efficient and kind of get some time back, having been a single mom and, being honest, hustling a lot, selling real estate with 2 little kids. I think it really made me see the business differently. And I saw there was a lot of wasted time, resources, opportunities, and that there really is a better way. If we're more efficient, we have more time and we have more resources to reinvest back in the business. So.
And that brings me back to, like, you're an author, and you you wrote the book, The Top 1% Life. Tell me a little bit about why you wrote it. What's the book about? Like, I think it's great, and again, some of the points you touch in that book are so relevant to our industry, right? It's so relevant to real estate agents and all that. So tell me a little bit about the book.
Yeah, I think the book is twofold. I say the book is like, it's a bridge book because it's bridging back to when I started coaching, because there's this, I think all companies get niches, and we're really thankful to have a niche that, 80% of our clients are top 1% nationally in their brands. And that's a great niche. But a lot of people think, well, they only work with the big teams and they only work if you're already 100 deal plus. And the reality is, all the heavy hitters that people associate with us, when we started working with them, almost all of them were either individual agents or a partnership with one admin. Like, we built step by step. But the book really came from going back to that place, because I wanted to help people with the transitions I saw that were really key to go from being a solopreneur to a business-based entrepreneur, which I think is very important. So it's that journey of, getting clear and getting strong, kind of like the name of, your show, the mindset and motivation, so that you're confident enough to get to mastery. And so it came from that. And there's a lot of kind of personal experience in it as well. But the reason the name Top 1% Life is because, I think both myself and helping my clients, I watched myself help people set goals to build top 1% thriving businesses. And I watched them achieve it and burn out and have health issues and have problems with their family. And I watched myself go through burnout, rebuilding the past coaching company and building this one. And I kind of just came to this massive awareness of, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to be the mentor who says, build this business that entraps you and takes your quality of life down. I'm going to be the mentor that says, hey, if we actually shake it off and reach for our top 1% life, building a business is actually easier. It's more enjoyable, and you're going to end up somewhere that's sustainable instead of somewhere that you're like, hey, I need to get the heck out of here. I can't, I've got this great business, but I'm chaotic and I can't live this way anymore, which, I think a lot of people who are successful in sales really relate to.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably one of the biggest challenges is we work with such driving entrepreneurs that they drive themselves into being successful in one pillar of their business while other pillars fall apart, right? So people always say to me, Jared, I just have no balance. And here's the truth is, I believe that life isn't about balance. Life is about counterbalance, right? It's about being able to do multiple things at one time, and be able to live a full life in all those areas. And sure, some areas you may have to give a little and to get more or whatever. And those shifts happen, but it's kind of sad to watch someone build something so great and destroy other parts of their life. So, I love the book because it's, it helps you realize that, listen, there is a way for us to get everything that we want out of life, right? Everything we want to get out of life. So awesome. So listen, what would be 2 or 3 things that if you said, listen, I want someone to take 2 or 3 things out of this book, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you would say, hey, I want you to get this out of the book and get you to have a really clear understanding, right? Awareness is what helps people move forward. So what's that awareness that people would get out of that?
Well, okay. So 3, I love that. So 3 key things. I think no matter what, I want to answer with 3 super like straight business stuff because my mind loves to go there. But the honest truth is, if we're not, again, clear and confident in who we are, we can't trust ourselves to take massive action, like trust our values and trust our visions of where we're going. If we don't have that level of confidence, it's next to impossible to put the right systems or processes in place that'll build what you're capable of. So I believe all business expansion starts with personal expansion and mental expansion. So you got to kind of, allow the frustrations of your current business to make you frustrated enough or to make you dream enough to get something bigger and better and actually be audacious enough to say, yeah, I'm going to change things. And if there's some loss in that, it's worth it because I'm going to go towards what I want instead of focusing on where I'm at. We get stuck in these everyday problems, but we're just building from where we're at. That's not where we want to be anyway. So let's get strong about where we're going. So I think that's the first thing that the book will really reinforce. The systems and processes are there. Anybody can invest in them. They can get them. It's the mental strength to implement them. So that's the first one. The second one, and I wish I wasn't still saying this, and I think anybody who's, in the coaching field, probably in real estate, might feel the same, particularly with teams, but that transition from GCI mindset to net mindset. And for us, it's not just about, okay, net versus gross. It's about how you organize your finances, how you, what you expect for returns, how you consider the different entities of the business. People really get stuck in that. And then again, they build a team, they like it, but they realize that they are the ones carrying it and they have to continue to sell because they didn't build a model that pays them. Or they don't want to lead the team anymore, but they can't sell it and it's not profitable. So I think the economic perspective of building a team is really invaluable. For us, like I try to help people build systems that already plug into the model. So even if they aren't, super loving economic models and profit and losses and budgets, which, shocking, right? A lot of people don't. So even if they don't love it, if I can get them implementing systems that already adhere to it, we get there anyway, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter, we can get there. So that's the second one. The third thing I have to say is becoming addicted to leverage. Like if you want a top 1% life and a business that supports it, you 100% need leverage. And leverage isn't just like, okay, initially it might be admin tasks or it might be little running around things like that. And that's a huge relief at first. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing. But eventually we believe in a work with a genius model that we've created within our coaching that really helps entrepreneurs, not just in real estate, to get hyper clear about their highest value in the business and quarterly to move over the things that now are getting kind of, less valuable for them to do. And we actually teach their team members to do this too. So they're constantly in this place of like leverage and evolving, whether it's services, technology, it's this hyper awareness of I need to stay in my zone and I need to honor the people who are good at the things that I'm not good at. Like I find a lot of people I'll say, oh yeah, I'm not good at, the visuals. I have somebody else who's going to do all my graphics because I want them to be beautiful and amazing, but I'm not the person to do that. I'm like, oh, that's good. Your weak spots. I'm like, I guard my business against my weak spots every single day. And that's why I bring talent. Like I'm humbled by what they're great at. Right. And I think that's the whole thing with the genius model. So those 3 things are transformative when you really commit and step into them in my experience.
Yeah, no, I love it. I wrote a book called Adapt, and it's about, self-actualization, self-realization of kind of, you got to get to understand yourself before you can help understand others, right? Like how you relate, how you communicate, all of that sort of stuff in order to get through and help people grow themselves if you don't get who you are. So I love that. And yesterday I was just doing a call about ancillary businesses, like for the real estate teams as they get big. And the ones that have done it really well have really learned how to leverage, right? Have really learned and said, listen, I don't know anything about mortgages. I know that I close, 150 buyer side transactions, 200 to 300 buyer side transactions a year. I know numbers. So I know, listen, if I can convert, those into using our mortgage company, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know anything about mortgages. So I want to leverage that to someone who does. Or we have people doing insurance or doing, like in the States, some of them do title and like all of that. And it's the ones that are really winning are the ones that really learn how to, like you said, stay in your lane. Like they partner or hire talent that helps them build those other businesses, right? And one of the guys on the call had like 7 different businesses, all real estate related, from a media company to insurance to a home. But each of those businesses had a person that that was the master of that business. And he said, I don't know anything about these, and I don't want to pretend to, right? So love it. All right, so let's jump into kind of today's topic, because it's been just a crazy 2020. And it's on one hand, we've got this pandemic out here, and the world creating fear, because that's the way our world works, is that we go out and we create all this fear, and we deal with our clients who are living in this world where there's so much fear around. And then we've got the other side of the business where you think, oh my gosh, this whole pandemic must be killing the real estate market. And the truth is, real estate market is still amazing. So like no listings, buyers are still out there buying. And so we've got these two different worlds. And, one of the things that I look at is, how do we help agents, not just real estate agents, work their way through those two worlds, but how do we get them to communicate with their clients at a level that helps them bring them to the understanding of what's really going on? So like, what are some key things right now with agents that you're working with them on?
Well, I think so. Yeah. And the market overall is just, fantastic. Like, I think it's full of opportunities, but it's easy to say that when you're working with people who have the opportunities, right? So I'm in a little bit of a bubble there. Like, our network is doing phenomenally well to still hit their 2020 goals. But I think what we did at the beginning was really get strategic about who we needed to communicate how to communicate with those people. And we switched the bullseye. Like, I'm a big believer in giving yourself wins. So it's, if during COVID we weren't going to be able to win with the number of deals, we certainly could win with the number of contacts, with how we looked at our lead generation, whether we turned it off or didn't, with how we clarified costs versus investments. We were celebrating the contact wins, the follow-up wins, the buyer contract wins, because in this type of a market, we need a long game approach. Because we're dealing with two different issues, at least. I don't know if there's some feedback happening. I hope it's okay. There's a little bit of an echo on mine. It wasn't initially.
I don't hear it.
Okay, good. Okay. So, we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with, in many areas, a scarcity of supply. So you've got a smaller amount of supply, and then you've got, on top of that, a surplus of potentially buyers who would like to get into the market, but also people are skeptical because they don't know what's going to happen. So to me, we've looked at really reinforcing your sales process to understand how to cultivate opportunities. If you're an agent right now who's always thrived off of, okay, they called on that listing, or hey, I'm doing duty time and they're calling on that listing, the likelihood that that buyer's gonna like the listing and even pursue it is usually like 99% no when we track it. But on top of that, the likelihood you're going to hit multiple offers and have competition is extremely high in certain price ranges and certain styles of homes. So if we're focused on trying to be product salespeople right now, we're taking a major hit. If we're focused on being opportunity consultants and meeting people where they're at and having systems that elongate our sales process and protect us and the client, it gives us more time to service those opportunities. I don't think it's ever been more important to have a client process than now. Like, COVID just brought that to the top of focus, because the teams that are killing it now, they didn't slow down during COVID. I mean, it's nice to hear, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. It's not. So, some people in real estate, I want to be delicate with my language because I'm thoughtful of it and I don't want to say it wrong. Some people in real estate specifically felt that it was great to kind of take this pause. But now they're suffering that they don't have business and the market's ahead of them, and they feel like now's the time to build the rebound. The time to build the rebound was at the start of this in March and the entire way through. So I think it's the mentality shift of servicing opportunities and securing, like, for example, we work with buyer representation agreements, and it's not to lock in the buyer. It's because we want to truly be able to help them and educate them and work with them until they find a home. So if I show them that house on Main Street and they don't like it, which the odds are going to tell me they don't, law of averages, I still have that opportunity with that person, whether it's 6 months or a year and whatnot. And those people bring sellers as well. So the great thing about that is your opportunities just continue to compound as long as you have a organized CRM. But I know I answered your question the one way, but I think you said something that's really important. There's still so much fear. And there's still in the agents who are struggling, I find there's still so much apprehension, right? Like I've still been on webinars even a couple of weeks ago where people started to ask questions, said, I still haven't called my database. I still don't know what to say. Like I'm not sure. And I'm listening to this and my heart's going out to them because they're in commission sales. And when I was selling, I couldn't afford to do that. And I'm assuming they can't either. So I'm just getting the certainty of who to contact, what to say, that strategy. Agents need that so much from their leadership right now and their coaches. And if they work with coaches, it's vital because we feel this fear. And I think there's this idea that, we're in this world that we're all trying to be vulnerable, right? It's really important, but it's like you have these feelings and then there's another step in between, right? Which is the decision. So I have this feeling that I'm unsure, I'm skeptical, and that's the vulnerability side. But then there's a choice. Am I going to lean into the opportunity? Am I going to go into fear and cover myself until this all seems to be like shelter, literally mentally in place, not just physically, or am I see it neutral? And I think I notice more and more how well top achievers take the feeling, they feel it, but then they process it, they make a choice. So the projection of the feeling and the feeling are different. So when we're in fear, it's really liberating to go, well, what do I think about that fear? And how could it make it better? And how could I use this fear to actually make my business better? And just the thought that that's an option for a lot of people, I find is really motivating and empowering to them. So I know I went on a tangent. I'll stop.
No, it's so important because like for me, I always say we make decisions based on the story that we tell ourselves, right? So, my job, as a matter of fact, this morning, I just sent a voice text to one of my clients and I said, remember, your job is to help change people's stories that they're telling themselves in order for them to make the decisions to move forward in whatever that is, right? So it starts with you. If you're telling yourself a story that doesn't serve you or doesn't serve your clients, and then that's what you're basing your decisions on or how to move forward. So first of all, you got to change your story, and you bring up opportunity. Like there's so much great opportunity in the market that we have, and if you don't see that opportunity, then you need to change your story. And then when someone's coming to you, like we've got buyers who are unsure, sellers even who are unsure of, listen, I got to sell my home, but a big part of selling my home is getting people in the home. I don't want people in my home. We've got to change their story so that they see the opportunity and see how we're going to help them. And then we've got to make sure we're communicating that to them. And that's so key into getting people, just like you said, to make the right decision, because decisions are what allow us to move forward, whether we're an agent or whether we're a buyer or a seller. And then so it's 100% our job to help teach people to recognize what stories they're telling themselves, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if you follow the U.S. election. It's the same thing down there with the U.S. election is, man, you got to change your story, what you're telling yourself half the time. Probably shouldn't get into that, but it's the truth, right? It's how we tell ourselves these stories. Awesome.
When you mirror it, right? Like if I'm telling myself a story that is like fearful or apprehensive or I'm unsure about the market, I'm now going to talk to buyers and sellers. And even if I don't realize it, I'm mirroring my story to them. Like I'm reinforcing uncertainty, and the media and the, everything that's gone out with data. That was the only second piece I was going to say on the agent side. We're really focusing on the power of turning information to value, which has been important for a long time, right? But I think it's vitally important right now. You've got the macroeconomics, then you got the micro, and you're an area specialist. Like the story you have about that data is what's valuable to the local buyers and sellers and your follow-ups and people you're talking to. And it's either going to motivate them into action, it's going to build rapport for a follow-up, or it's going to push them away. Yeah. So I agree with you. It's everything right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump right into some of the challenges that I see happening with like some of the teams that I coach or some of the agents that I coach. And I'm going to like, what are you telling people? Like, so let's go to the buyer side real quick. Cause I mean, most of the people that are going to watch this are real estate agents. So from the buyer perspective, agents are right now going, Jared, we have a huge challenge. We have a huge group of buyers. We're showing them homes. It's multiple offers and it's just crazy. How do we start winning these multiple offers? Like, how do we protect the agents that we coach to make sure they're putting in winning offers? Like, what are you saying to people?
Well, okay, so I'm going to stick with your story thing because I think it works for them. I think, having a control is not a bad thing in business if you apply it in a healthy way. And when you have buyers who are hitting multiple multiple offers. It's really important to look and kind of go back to our stories and our ability to have influence on people. So I see a lot, I don't know if you're seeing this, but agents who are kind of taking the buyers out, they're not really prepping them on what to expect fully with multiple offers. They're hitting the multiple offers, they're getting frustrated, and then they're kind of going, we're missing out, should we continue to move forward? Or they're not helping to educate the buyer. So we have such a great opportunity to say, okay, what do you think this house is going to sell for? Even during the initial showings, before they want to make an offer, let's do a fun bet. What do you think these 5 are going to sell for? Okay, this one ended up to sell in 2 days with this, whether we know the offers or not, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but for this sale price, you start to get the buyer in that mindset. The second thing is, I'm a big believer in nurturing presence everywhere you can. If I have a buyer who's about to go into a multiple offer, there is no way that I'm sending them comparables by email and saying, tell me what you want to offer. There is no way, because the minute they look at that data, they get a perception of it. They dig their heel in and they're like, well, it says we should be at 99% of list ask. And like, who knows what they cling on to? You just don't know. Their value in using us is, again, taking that information and interpreting it. And my biggest influence is in talking about, okay, now we have 5 more offers. Now we know, this percentage of offers are just going to drive everybody else up, and giving them some guidance on what's realistic and talking about conditions. So I influence what they pick instead of just data that, they're not going to see with the same eyes as somebody in real estate. I think also that, right now it's on Zoom, but the sit down meetings. I mean, if you're losing again and again, and you're in the same price range, you're in the same model of home, type of home, needs and wants kind of thing, make an appointment with your buyer. Like, actually talk to them, not out on a showing, not on virtual showings, like face to face. Let's talk about this. We're seeing the best of what's available in the market right now in your price category. Either we're offering on it and we're losing, or we're not even offering on it. What do we need to do to change? Because I'm worried that I want to keep your energy high to get a house, but I don't want you to get desensitized of not picking what is good value, or not realizing what we'd actually have to pay to get you what you want. So those types of like course corrections and being extremely proactive, I think, are important. Just watch and get super curious. I know that we showed that house and they had 18 offers. What did it sell for? Like, just start to get really curious with that type of information. And, we also get lucky too in watching the odd time what doesn't sell, which I was always a fan of. Okay, everything's selling in multiples. I'm going to show you everything that's sitting on the market. And let's just for fun talk about it. It may work, it may not, but I found it works a couple of times, because those people aren't getting the offers or aggressive negotiations.
Awesome. I love that. And it's so true. Like, agents in the very beginning, like, if we're not doing a buyer's analysis with a buyer upfront in advance to explain the process, then you got to expect that you're going to lose something with that buyer. Like, you showing that you're the expert in, number one, like letting them know that, hey, there's a good chance you're going to be in multiple offers. This is what it's going to look like. This is the process, right here. Like, this is what's happening in the market, educating them. This is what's going on in the market. And then I love what you said about, like, don't let them pick. Like, they're hiring you as the expert to give them the advice that they need to win. So if you're going, hey, we're in multiple offers, choose your price, they're not going to choose a price that's going to help them win. They're going to choose a price in their head that goes, I want a deal, because everybody wants a deal, right? And you could find yourself in a huge, well, no, that's not a good place to pick, and this is where you should pick. And now you've got to bridge the gap versus now going, hey, this is where you should be, right? So love that. Okay, let's switch it to the other side, because what I find in this market, and I'm a huge on, again, it's like a lot about a mindset around what's happening in the market, is because we tend to go towards what's easiest, right? Like in life, everything, right? So right now it's easier to find buyers, so I'm going to go look at buyers. And I think that's a huge mistake as an agent, because I would say go after listings, but Jared, no listings are out there. We can't find listings. And I'm like, I get that. So an agent that gives you that kind of conversation of, I think I'm just going to go work with buyers because listings are too hard to get. Like, what is your mindset around helping them get to a place that says, man, I need to go after listings, or this is the best place that you need to get in order to get more listings?
Well, the first and probably least popular, so I'll say it first, is just like keep your database organized, because most people have more loss in the opportunity they're dropping than in the new things they invest in. And that sounds really weird. Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, we're converting at a lower rate. We're not organizing our follow-up. So we have opportunities that are coming into the business that we're dropping that we don't even see. So the first thing I'd say is like, keep it really organized. But the second is kind of similar. Always go to your database. You know, in a strong seller's market, sure, we have buyer leads coming in and we'll nurture them. And some of those will turn to listings. Absolutely. Buyers create listings just as much as listings create buyers. But going to the database and reaching out. And I think this is where, you know, teams do have a bit of an unfair advantage because they have really extensive databases. So they have ways that they can keep reaching out. And I know some agents are definitely still either delivering letters instead of door knocking. Some are door knocking. I'm not going to say here nor there about that right now. I'm not going to get into that, but you know, they're using the fact that they have a buyer to garner opportunities with listings. And I think teams who have, you know, large pools of buyers are doing the same. Like we're seeing more and more exclusive listings being advertised, and that'll keep happening because they have a big enough pool that they're getting exposure for the sellers, and the sellers don't want a ton of people in the house because of COVID. So it's a really interesting flip, right? Of like, hey, we can do this a bit quicker with the people that we have here. So, you know, I like to leverage the resources around me. I think teams have a bit of an advantage there, but most of it right now, database for sure would be the big one that I would say.
Yeah. I had an agent yesterday come to me and they're like, oh, you know, on a team, they had the best week ever, right? The best. So I was like, what's the best week ever? They like, well, the week before we took 7 listings on the team and we sold 7 listings and 2 buyers. We had a 9 contract week last week. And I'm like, great. Right. And so I was like, so let me get this straight. You took 7 listings and sold 7 of them in a matter of 3 or 4 days, like, because that's what's really happened. They're like, yeah. I'm like, so what's the answer here, right? Like, that's the obvious. Like, what's the answer? Like, it's so much easier to go find. Like, yes, it's harder to find listings, but hey, it's a really good opportunity for you as an agent to massively change your numbers if you get out there and get doing it. So listen, agent comes to you and says, listen, I'm struggling right now. New client comes to you and says, hey, Kathleen, listen, I need just 2 or 3 pieces of advice that listen, I need to get back up and going again. I'm struggling. I let maybe COVID go to my head a little bit too much, and I need to get back on the horse. What are a couple of 2 or 3 tidbits that you would say, listen, this is what you need to do absolutely right now? Like, you go in on Monday morning and you start these 2 or 3 things in order for that person to get kind of back running again.
Yeah. I'd say number 1, like, start to tell yourself like some type of you can call it a goal or an affirmation, right? Like, at the end of this month, I'm celebrating, you know, this many hours of prospecting and this many follow-ups banked and this many new clients. I would really get yourself in a place to be open and allowing new opportunities to come to you, because when you're overwhelmed and you're stressed, you often repel opportunities. So, and if you're not really into that side of it, I'd say any agent who does prospecting can say, yeah, I started calling my database and all of a sudden I got people calling me or I got leads, but it wasn't necessarily the people I called. Like, I don't get it. There's just an energy to what you put out and what you bring in. So I would start with your headspace of, hey, how am I so easily getting all these opportunities? How is it so easy to get busy again? Like, just make it light, because we're more productive when we're light and we can see clearer when we're light. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a little bit not as like soft and nice. Number 2 is you need to set a set schedule, like a perfect week, and 100% commit to it. It's just like getting back to the gym, right? You're not going to feel like it for the first 5 days, the first 10 days, maybe even the first month, but your body will get in that habit, which will get you either to the office or your home office for you. So actually reverse engineer, you know, what do I need to do to be happy with this year? Okay, do I know? If you know your conversion, great. If you don't, just go by some type of kind of rule of thumb from when you're doing prospecting, like, you know, 100 dials will get you 2 leads kind of thing, something to this effect. But that would be the second thing. Like, carve out your perfect week and commit to it with no excuses. Because the minute you commit to something, life is going to challenge you and it's going to go, are you serious? Like, really? Okay, there's something else going on, or we haven't seen the family, like whatever it is, or I'm tired, or I feel like going for a run today. It's going to challenge you. And the whole thing is, with leaders, we have to be willing to say, no, I'm serious. Like, I'll take the pain to get what I want to build. And there will be pain. So people say what they want all the time. And I know it's kind of against some of like the positive attraction stuff, but I listen really closely to what are you willing to suffer? Because to me, it's just change. Like, what are you willing to take out to get there? The third thing is, if you have listing and buyer presentations, which I'd add to the listing side, make sure you're strong. How many times do you get excited to get that opportunity only to get to the table and not get the actual listing or buyer contract because we hadn't even looked at the listing presentation and now we're competing, which is going to happen now. So that third thing is just start practicing, start being active with your listing pres, your buyer pres, your scripting, do that kind of review. But the biggest is the prospecting time, because you should have clarity on what is follow-ups, what are my calls for new leads, what new leads do I have to create them, versus center of influence calling. So I recommend you allocate time for both so you get both done.
Yeah.
Mindset, schedule, and get back to your core skill set so you're strong when those opportunities show up, right? It's like luck is, what do they say? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Be prepared. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. The it's so funny because when I had a coach, like when I look back on all the things that obviously I teach now, and like you had mentioned it earlier, is kind of the follow-up. And like when my coach used to, he used to always say to me, how many opportunities did you miss this week because you didn't set time aside to follow up with the people that you should have followed up with? And that was so true with me. Like I would go on listing presentations and I was really good on getting on the presentation. And then I'd come off and I go, oh, they'll call me when they're ready. And they won't, like, just so you know, guys, they will not call you when they're ready. Someone will call them and they will go, yes. So you better follow up with them, right? Or I'll take a buyer out and then I won't, follow up with them for 4 or 5 days. Guess what? They're going to go out and find another person to show them homes that week, and that will close them, right? And so that's the reality. And so it's so important to take time. Tom used to teach me that, listen, get super clear on the lead generation. And I had what we called the 4 5s. Mine were 4 5s. And Tom would call me and go, hey, Jared, listen, did you do your 4 5s this week?
Yeah.
Right? It was simple as that. And because it was simple, it was easy for me to do. Right? It was easy for me to kind of do and kind of get that stuff done. And then I connected with a bunch of group. And it's so funny because, like you said, like, here's the reality. I might make, 20 calls 5 days a week or 60 calls 5 days a week. And then a random person will come in and go, hey, I'm ready to sell my house. And you'll go, wait a minute, how did that happen? It's the energy you put into it. Like, you're in that space and you're drawing that stuff in. And it's so important, for us to just get busy. Right. And I always say, you can have a schedule. And we always say, hey, get committed to your schedule. I say, listen, if you don't submit to your schedule, for me, my schedule set me free. When I submitted to it, it set me free. And it's because, listen, we live our life so many ways by just things coming at us. And real estate agents are really guilty of just, waking up and letting things just flow at them. And they're just kind of, you ever see that? They're like, I was flicking away all the good word. Like, I watch real estate agents like that, like, oh, this is coming at me. Oh, this is coming at me. And they don't live their life by design, or they don't live their life focused and intentional. Right. So that's awesome. 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 Listen, we're at 32 minutes. If there's anything else that you want to share, what would that be? Like, if there's anything that you said, hey, Jared should have asked me this because this would have been killer for the audience to hear, what would that have been? I know it's a tough question. Maybe I should have sent it to you in advance.
Say it again, because I was going to say something and I feel like you asked a different question. What did you just say at the end of that?
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was saying was, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you that would have been super powerful for our audience to hear, walking away from this?
It'll work. Thank you. It'll still work. I think the key is, it's systemize your existing problems so you get to solve new problems. Like, that's one of the most empowering things we can do, because if it's always coming at us with our business, like I always like to say, if I can transfer knowledge, I can climb new mountains. I'm like, I want to climb new mountains. I don't want to climb the same one again and again the rest of my life every single day. Like, I can't even imagine that. So my whole goal is, like, how can I give it away either to technology or a system or a process? Like, solve the problems you have now to put them on autopilot, and you get new problems, but it means you're growing. And that's one of the most important things. A lot of the people I work with, they're facing the same problems they faced for 20 years in real estate. Sure, there's some different aspects, but overall it's very similar, right? So, like, how can we actually have things on autopilot a little bit more? But that's my system mindset, right? For me, I'm like, I'm willing to solve new problems, not old problems. I don't ever want to see this problem again. So let's solve it perfectly now.
I love that. I love that because it's so true. Like we have, I get on a lot of calls. Obviously I do a lot of coaching calls, throughout the year, and you're like trying to solve the same problem over and over and over again. So I love that because that's a great line. Like, listen, guys, I don't ever want to solve this problem again. So let's solve it now. And I'm going to be using that because that's so true. When I think about, we're back to this again. Yeah. That's so true. Kathleen, listen, I appreciate you jumping on this morning with me. I know how, amazing leader you are in our industry, and I know that you're quite busy. If someone wants to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to get in touch with you?
They can either follow us on social media, or our main website is ittakes.team. So ittakes.team. If anyone wants a copy of the book, we're still giving away the free digital copy because I just finished recording the Audible, which was great to be done like yesterday. But the digital copy is top1percentlife.com, and the one is numerical. So top1percentlife.com, and you can grab a copy for free too.
Awesome. Thanks for your time today, Kathleen. It's greatly appreciated. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jared. Thanks everybody who joined us. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.